Are we going now? It thought about that for a very long time, but we seem to be going now. Hello! Thanks for joining me. I am going to be working on inking this piece. The illustration I worked on last week's stream. I did I did a good portion of the pencils. I finished up after the stream. This is my illustration for the location of the Temple of Zeus as I usually do, and some stuff with my tools. I just realized I forgot my drawn sleeve. Let me get that on there. There we go. I can hear using this. I still prefer for brush with nibs, so that's what I'm going to be using. I find that if I do like a big area of black with it, like on a brush, it comes out kind of gray. Like I have to go over it a couple times to get a nice opaque coverage, but perfectly good for using with nibs. Seems to flow a lot better in nibs too, so that's what I'm doing. I'm going to use my triangle and try to get some of this straight edge stuff done. I promise to not just spend the entire stream the troll and the French curve, though. We got to get to some of the good stuff. I can't promise I'm going to get to brush in the hour, is the only thing. All right. Clean off my triangle, as you always want as you move through. Oh no. I'm a mess. Clean off my nib too. As you can see, I'm not always the best at doing that in a timely fashion. I always look like I've been bathing in my ink after. I don't even know how. I try to be nice and neat. It just doesn't work. So we're going to turn this around, do some more straight edges over here. I like to do some of this stuff first because I don't actually get it out of the way. So fun stuff. And I'm not tempted when I'm like most of the way through a piece already to just be like, I'm just going to fudge it because I don't really like doing it and I'm real close to being done. And then I end up with a bunch of goofy, wonky looking lines. So I just make myself do it first thing. I'm pretty pleased with how the pencils for this have turned out. Hey, Bryce. Thanks for coming and joining me. That wasn't supposed to go all the way. Dang it. Okay. I have to fix that one later. Gonna have to fix that with whiteout. Whoops. I'm gonna embrace. It's all your fault. It's what you're there for. You're my scapegoat. Oh, I did it again. I need to see. This is the problem, is the way that I'm doing this, my hand is blocking my eye. what I use for whiteout, because it is not like, obviously it's not like, you know, it's not Papermate office whiteout. That would be super gross. Not something I would want to put on my artwork. I don't know what even is in that stuff, but it seems to always be like the consistency of used chewing gum. I don't know. It's like when you first crack open a bottle, it's nice and smooth and smells very chemically and horrible. And then after the bottle has been used one time, it just turns into the gummiest, nastiest stuff I've ever encountered. So no, that does not go on. That does not go on artwork, but I have a different whiteout solution, which is fine for artwork. And I'll break that out and show you, since I made a mistake and Bryce says he's interested. So I'll show you what that is in just a minute. I don't generally do any whiteout like when I'm done with a piece, because you may need to do a few of them, as long as Zeus light. Well, this Zeus is not going to lightning bolt anyone because he's a giant statue. All right, so we've got his giant eagle staff. Now let's get these other columns over here, which these ones I want to give a nice fine line because they're further back. So that fine line helps to push them back in the plane, makes them look farther away on this door frame, which hopefully I will do correctly this time. I do nice and bold by contrast. Whoops, let's straighten that back out. I do nice and bold because it's about as close as anything to the viewer, the picture, to do a nice bold line in one go. There we go. I'm going to try not to make the same mistake twice. Lined up for this one. This one, even though it's close though, I like to do a thinner line on this because it's like it's an interior detail, so I don't want it to look like it's a separate object. There's a lot of things to consider with line weights. Where this is like, you know, it's a part of this door, and so the outside of this object has the big bold line, has a thin line, so it doesn't look like a separate thing that's even forward or just as far forward. So I mean, hopefully that reads. That's the goal for all that, but let's do, before my water gets too much more polluted with my ink, I will show you real quick a whiteout demonstration. So I was not prepared for this, so hold on while I dig. Where is it? There we go. Either way, but you need white, super white gouache, and it's a brush, watercolor type brush, and something to use for a palette. I have one of these clearly well-loved little palettes because the gouache straight out of the tube, you don't want to use it that way. And I only have to do a little thing, so I'm just going to do the tiniest little smear there. So this one tube Not cheap. This tube costs, I think, usually around $7 or $8, but I usually only ever use about that much at a time, so it'll last me a very long time. And it stays good in that tube, unlike, liquid paper that you use one time and then is horrible. So then you use a little bit of, that's very gray. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. I might have to go over this again. Use just a tiny bit of water to get that end able to be spread. And the area where you made your mistake, which for me is right here, you just paint over top. And it's gone. Now, obviously, looking at the paper, like if you had the physical piece of paper in front of you, if you were looking closely, you would be able to see it because it's a little bit of a slightly raised area at the surface, but it will not pick up on the scanner. And even if it does, it's a lot easier to just kind of clean than a big bold line. So yeah, that's how you do that. That's what you use for corrections, which whoop. Yeah, you can still see where it's a little wet there, but the area has now been corrected. That's gouache. Designer's gouache. It's a nice, dries nice and opaque. If you thin it too much, like if you use it straight out of the tube, it's very gooey and does not like to flow on the paper very well. And if you thin it too much, then it'll be a lot more translucent. It will not be as opaque, and you'll have to go over it a bunch of times. So that's the one tricky thing with it, is finding that right balance of water to get the right flow versus opacity. That's part of what makes working with gouache in general tricky. Gouache is a really cool painting medium, but it's not what I am good at. I had to use it in arts for in foundations classes for 2D design and stuff, and I was always like, what is this? All right, we're gonna start working on this curve a little bit here, and then we already got a little derailed with our whiteout lesson. Satisfied you, Bryce? So as usual with the French curve, we're not going to be able to get the whole, do it in a couple different sections, but that section is now wet. So we're going to scoot over here and see if I can find a section to do that will not cause me to drag my French curve through the wet area that I just did. I think that'll work. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, it's going to take at least a couple of goes to get curves because they've got an interest shape to them. So they're going to take a couple of passes with the French curve. All right, so while that is drying, we're going to come down here and I'm going to do some fun stuff for a minute. I'm going to work on this cool little frieze down here. So in the descriptions of this this awesome huge statue that did once exist in ancient Greece, the descriptions state that Amazonomachy. It's the battle with the Amazons. So that is, I looked up at the Amazonomachy and other artistic depictions of it and kind of cobbled a few together into this image, which is supposed to be like life size. Because this statue of Zeus is supposed to be about 40 feet tall, so this depiction and the footstool should be about life size. Our figures, our life size people up front here are a little bit away from the seat, so they would be about 5 once they got that close. So I found a bunch of other depictions of this story and period depictions, Greek art, and kind of there for this, which was fun. Horses. Why are horses so hard to draw? So I'm not getting super detailed on these little figures because they're just on here. They're not supposed to have a huge amount of attention to themselves. Just kind of like a detail that if you're for it, you'll be able to be like, oh, that's cool. Okay, so there's that. Go ahead and do that. And I still want to do those long straight lines with one of my tools so that I don't make them all wobbly. Speaking of, we'll go back to that for a sec. I'm going to work on this door some more now that my whiteout should be dried. The gouache takes a minute to dry, but it doesn't take too long. Like, you gotta give it a sec to do its thing, but really just a couple of minutes is usually more than. Okay, there's that door. Okay, so there's my doors. Those are nice and let's see. What else can I work on with this? Whilst I have it out, get those. That should be dry already. Yeah, the Royal Talons also seems dry really fast, which I like for doing this type of work. A little faster than the Winsor Newton does. I'm not crazy about it for brushwork, but it's pretty nice for the pen nib. So I'll probably end up ordering more of it when the sample jar that I got is done. And then I'm going to be even fussier. I'm going to turn into this even fussier artist about my, my materials. I only use this ink for nibs, and I only use this ink for my brush. So that's my fussy artist voice. I don't know. Oh, let's see. No, it's going to have to go like this. Come on, cooperate. Just cooperate. Okay. So I test to line up. Yeah, I think that's what we're going to have to do there. So I'm still going to have the middle of this curve that I haven't quite gotten yet, but this should get most of it. And then I'll do one more little section to tie that together. It would help if I had ink on my nib. There we go. So I just have one little spot left that's not inked there that needs to tie that curve together, which we will do once that dries some more. And as you can see, I did not make these curves exactly the same. So this one I will be able to complete like that, because they are not the same curve, even though they should be. Good job, Amanda. You're a pro. Oh well. What you gonna do? The answer is I should have fixed it. I should have realized that and fixed it in the drawing stage, but it's too late for that now. Moving on. I am getting paid to do this in a reasonably timely manner, so on I go. Speaking of, I don't think I've mentioned during this stream, I did on the last one, that this is for In the Footsteps of Hercules by Skirmisher Publishing. So this is an illustration for that source book. I'm a pro, kid. Yeah. Hey, Bryce, you were in like the first wave of people who actually hired me to do things. Isn't that crazy? I've actually been a pro, quote unquote, for a long time now. But yes, this is for a source book and campaign book called In the Footsteps of Hercules. It's out for D&D, but it's also, I think a lot of the like online content for it is system agnostic, so you can develop it you can adapt it to whatever it is that you're running, but the idea is that it's a pilgrimage following labors of Hercules. So you're just like a Greek pilgrim of whatever stripe, visiting these different ancient sites and kind of going on an adventure along the way. It's not really combat focused. There are places where you do fight things, but there's a lot of other cool stuff that you do instead. And so I've had a lot of fun. We've play tested with the Skirmisher development group. We've play tested this campaign as Mike has been writing it, and I've been illustrating it. We're almost done. We're at like the last stop on the pilgrimage in our playtest, and it's been a lot of fun. Getting some of these little columns. Well, thank you, Bryce. That means a lot to me that you've never regretted having hired me. That was back in the little baby Amanda art professional days. The only people who had hired me so far were Mike at Skirmisher, Jeff Sidek at Guerrilla Games, and then I think Jeff introduced me to Bryce and Kirby at Fearlight. Like those has branched out from either working with Jeff Sidek or Mike Frohola. There's like a handful of people I've met randomly, but a lot of it has come from that. I guess now there's like a new wave of people that I've worked for that I met through Doug at Victory Condition Gaming. And Doug and I met completely at random, which was pretty funny. But there we go. Now that curve is done. Finally. Let's see. I do still have some of this to do with the pen nib, but I'm getting mildly bored of it, so I might put it aside for a minute and do some brush work. And then maybe see where we're at. I'll do this little detail. See where we're at before the stream ends. We're about halfway through it now. I usually have these run for about an hour, because by the end of an hour, I need to get up and stretch. You should get up and stretch. We should all get something to drink, stay hydrated. This has been your art mom reminding you to take care of yourself. Okay, got these weird little door detail thingies, these little like brackets that are holding the different panels of the door together, I guess. I don't know, I thought they looked cool. Sorry, I keep putting my big stupid head in the way. Okay, there we go. All right, I think put the nib up for a little bit. Get my French curve on out of here before I send it flying. And we're going to switch over to brush for a little bit, just for a little change of pace. I do still have some stuff I need to do with the pen nib and some of my tools, like this pool down at the bottom, some of the floor tiles, some of this, like more stuff around the ceiling. But I'm bored of it now. So that, I'm going to move that over, cap it. I'm going to move on to my Winsor & Newton ink, which is a little bit thicker, a little bit more opaque. I'm going to move on to my brush. Which is also Winsor & Newton Series 7 Kolinsky Sable. Where is my scrap paper? Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so organized. It's really super. Come on. I was just using this like last night. Where did you go? It's disappeared. Okay, cool. Cool. I don't think I have any other scrap. Getting on the floor is after I get some ink on there, I load up my brush. I kind of scrape a little bit off onto the side of the inkwell, and then I just use this scrap paper to kind of test how much ink I have in there, see if I'm sufficiently loaded up, and to hone my point, because sometimes when you put it back in the inkwell, it gets a little bit fat and squishy, and I don't want to ink with the tip of my brush all fat and squishy. I want it perfectly tapered and precise. Tapered and precise. That's what we are going for, so that I can get nice, fine lines and control. Period accounts of the statue of Zeus at Olympus have him holding a statue of Nike in his hand. As far as I know, the only period visual reproduction that represents this, or the only one that came up in my research, which admittedly, it's not like I spent a crap load of time researching it. I just researched it until I felt like I had a good enough idea of what I was doing to execute the piece. The only image, contemporary image, that's surviving that I could find was on a coin, and so it's a very, very small image, and so the figure of Nike in Zeus's hand is just like a really minuscule little blob. There's a lot of like written description, but most of them were talking about like, you know, the balance of the materials that the statue of Zeus was made of, which is going to be fun to color because it's like crazy. He was made of all sorts of rare materials, woods and metal, ivory and gold, and lapis and other precious gemstones, and it's going to be really cool. It's going to be pretty wild. All right, so there's Victory. I'm going to hold off on doing her spear and make sure I do that with a straight edge. Nike. So now we can start working on Zeus, the big guy himself. So yeah, the source book I was talking about, it is already out. You can buy a PDF copy of it. And because it's all written, there's just full of maps and like 2 illustrations missing. I'm working on the last 2 illustrations. And as those get finished and included in the publication, if you've already the PDF, you'll just get like an update in your email. And the actual physical book will come out eventually here when we're all done with it. Obviously, the physical books we were holding off on printing until we get all these odds and ends done for it. Crossed over that line. I didn't want to do that. Oh well. More time with the whiteout later. go. Gotta get that big, muscly, manly Zeus chest on there. Reload my brush. And hone my point again. Before I move on to his head. Getting all of these little branches. All the little leaves on the branches. I think that it was supposed to be an olive crown, if I remember correctly. You know, like gods are often depicted with. Anyway. So unlike when I'm working on something like my comic pages, I'm trying to keep this very clean and simple. I'm not really adding a bunch of texture and shadow or anything here because this is going to be digitally colored. So I don't want to try to compete with the digital color. I just want the lines to describe the forms. And to a certain extent, I want variations in line weight to help do that, but I don't want to have like big areas of dark blacks or lots of texture or anything, because that'll just compete with the colors for describing the image. Word. So I have to exercise more restraint than I normally would with things like hair textures. Normally, I'd be going to town on this hair texture, on this beard in particular. But instead, I have to kind of keep it minimal, of like, where are the lines describing the major waves that would be in the beard that a sculptor would have put there, as opposed to the actual like texture of a beard. Which would be something very different. Man, my furnace is so, and I can hear my furnace thundering. I wonder if you guys can hear it through my microphone, or if it's doing a good enough job of just picking me up. I don't know. I live in a trailer, so my furnace is just like down the hall. Like it's like 15 feet away from me, and just behind a very thin wooden door, as opposed to like in a house where your furnace is usually in the basement. So you might hear, and when they're like right next to you, it's freaking loud. Try to get this hand. There we go. There's his hand, very lightly holding his stuff, not really gripping it, just kind of resting with it there. We'll get his kilo. That's a Roman word. I kind of suck at it. I'm not gonna lie. But that's a passable bird. I mean, it's a passable bird. Not a great bird, but it's an okay bird. So again, reload, hone, and continue. Make that actually meet there instead of just awkwardly not quite thing. There we go. Need a little more ink because that one started to get a little bit dry brushy there, which is not what I am looking for. Dry brush is a very cool technique, but not the one we are using today. Cool. Okay. I'm gonna work on his. That's all of his robe. Most of Zeus. I just have his feet left. We've got about 10 minutes left in the stream, so I'm gonna start going over some of the things. Like I have to do at the end of every these videos. I am Amanda Call. You're watching my channel. If you enjoy watching me work on artwork, then you should definitely like this video, subscribe to and do the bell thing so you know when I go live. As of right now, it's usually Tuesday at 8 o'clock. But that may change depending on what sort of madness happens in my life. But I try to keep fairly consistent, whatever it has to switch to. I usually try to keep it that way for a while. I am currently working on a piece for In the Footsteps of Hercules, which is a game or RPG source book released by Skirmish Publishing. However, I also have my own big project, Age of Night, which is a weekly fantasy webcomic, very ages on the stream, but sometimes I like to work on my freelance work, like I'm doing this evening. You can check out my webcomic at ageofnight.com. That's AGEOFNIGHT. I update a new comic page every Wednesday night. You can also support me on Patreon. And if you do, you get all the comic pages a week early. You get free comics, get other cool early previews and behind the scenes stuff. It's generally very cool and I appreciate it because it helps me be able to continue doing this. Age of Night, spelled just like the website, GEOFNIGHT. You can follow me on Twitter at Age of Night and Instagram at Amanda Call. But again, if you really like the videos, then the best thing to do is to subscribe to this channel so that you can keep seeing the art videos as I do them. I do these live streams every week. I also do other videos or time lapses or other, odds and ends. I do those about every 2 weeks is what I'm with that. I just posted another plein air video this Sunday. Those were fun. Where I just go hang out in the woods and sketch a landscape. And you get to enjoy the chill ambient woods sounds. Can't say as I'm going to do too many more of those until springtime. Maybe I'll do 1 or 2 in winter, but we'll see. I'm kind of a wimp. I don't like the cold. I know. I live in Maine. I'm Polish. I don't like the cold. Winter is a great time to be indoors. Indoors drawing, not outdoors drawing. Again, this character's little staff I'm going to leave to do the straight edge. Much about the details on these small figures because like they're there, they're in the foreground, but obviously the focus of the piece is the giant statue of Zeus. Like the figures are basically just to provide you for how ridiculously massive this thing is. This character's little feet. Feet are legit difficult to draw sometimes, you guys. Oh, we're almost to the end of the hour. I'm going to leave the shield on this character's back to be done with an ellipse template so that it is actually round. That would be good. This character is holding a helmet in his hand out of respect. That's pretty much going to do it for the brush inking. And now I just have to go back with my pen and some tech tools to finish up these architectural. So I'm glad I took a break from them and worked on it with the brush because this was fun and refreshing. And hopefully entertaining for me to break it up a little bit partway through. All right, so I started with just a full pencil illustration. There was no ink on it yet. We've got a good portion of the background done. We've got all of the brush inking done on all the figures, including the massive figure of the statue of Zeus at the 7 wonders of the ancient world temples at Olympus. So I'm close to being done with this one. I've just got a little bit more of the nib and background technical work to do, and then I was drawing, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.